So last week we have started with the workflows. Then you have seen that workflow basically is a kind of business automation process where as a part of actions, the kind of operation what we can perform with the workflows. So there are 4 different operations. There are 4 different actions that we could probably do with the workflows. So first is like we can send the emails, and then we can update a field in the same object as well as in the cross object also. What is a cross object field update action? That is already we have seen. And then what are the considerations whenever you perform the cross object field update action? That is also we have seen. And then you can send the outbound messages. And the last one is like you can assign a new task, to a user. So let me now start with this. What does it mean by the task? How to assign a task? And what is a task object? What is an event object? And what is the significance of these 2 objects? Let's first start with this. So guys, you remember one thing, if when we create any object, like created have these many like objects we already have created. Now let me show you something. For example, I created one of the sample object like my custom object. So at the time of creation of this object, if you remember, let me show you something. Let's go to this object and then expand the force.com access menu. Go to this view object, right? Sometime I used to say the navigation, otherwise what you see is the best thing. Okay, so I'm here like into the customized page of this object. So or rather not let me anyways chalo again se kar lete hain. Let me go and edit this object. So I press the edit button. So if you remember at the time of creating the object, we have actually click all these 4 checkboxes like allow. In the optional feature section, I told every one of you that you need to check every one of this, allow reports, and then allow activities, track field history, allows in the chattel. So at the time of creation of the object, I told every one of you that you have created these many objects: hiring manager position, and then candidate. These are at least every one of you has at least created these 3 objects. Few more objects to understand this many to many relationship we have created, like author and book, and then book author object, which is actually a common child, a junction object that is we created for this many to many relationship. And one more object, probably I don't know why, but I created this my custom object also. Probably I was doing some example, something like that. So at the time of creation of any object, you yourself have seen that we go to the optional feature section, and then we have click all these 4 checkboxes, like allow activities. So now we are going to discuss something about the activities, right? Before we go forward, and then we start with the task and event object, and then we start about a discussion how to create the task using the workflows. So we actually require to understand so many things from here, right? What exactly is the task, and what is the event, what is the activities, then what does it means by WhoId and WhatId. So whatever you are learning right now, about the task object, about the event object, these are certainly important things. These are certainly important things for your interview considerations. For your interview considerations, these are certainly important things. Okay, so at the time of creating of any object, whenever we are creating, we have click one of the checkboxes, and among the checkboxes, we have click one of the checkbox, allow activities. So what does it mean by the activities? Let me first start with this. What does it mean by the activities? Okay, so because you see that in every object, like in this object, or let me go with this hiring manager object. If I expand this force.com quick access menu, and then I see view objects, and if I go and edit this, I could see that allow activities has been checked. So it's basically like for every object what we have created. Now if I go to the position object, and for the position object also, if I go and see for this position object, allow activities. Let me check this also, allow in the chat. So for every object what we have created, we check this particular checkbox, allow activities, in the optional feature sections. So what happens when you click this and what happens when you don't click this. Okay, so let's first of all understand this, and then we will move forward towards the few of the more concepts. So first of all, let's understand what really happens when you click this and what happens when you don't click this. Okay. So let's understand that first. See, uh, let me take you to the schema builders. Like, let me take you to the schema builders. So, and let me clear the canvas. And then you know that we have actually two objects, like task is one of the object. And then we also have, these are the standard objects, actually event. These are the two standard objects. Okay. Task object and the event object. You see, task object and event object, these are basically two of the standard objects. Okay. These are the two standard objects. First of all, task object, event object, what are those? First of all, these are the two standard objects. Now, let me bring some of the objects like the hiring manager objects. Let me bring the hiring manager object. Now, as soon as I bring hiring manager object over here, you need to identify one thing. You need to identify one thing. Let me just make it minimize so that, I could arrange them all in a very proper way. Yeah. We arrange them in such a way that you could understand. Now, you see, the hiring manager object. The hiring manager object, now as we can see on this canvas, the hiring manager object is having a relationship with both the task and the event. Now, what kind of relationship? If I put my cursor over here, we could identify the relationship also. You could see that, it's a lookup relationship. It's a lookup relationship from task to hiring manager. That means your hiring manager is the parent and the task object is the child object. Now, moreover, if I put my cursor over here, this again, I could see that hiring manager is also related to the event object, and this event object is child, your hiring manager is parent. So everywhere in both of these two cases, the hiring manager is parent and your task and event object are the child objects. Okay, fine. Okay. Now let me remove hiring manager and let me bring position object. Let me bring the position object. So the same story once again, as you can see. Position object is also related with task and events. Position object is also related with the task and events object. You see, there's a lookup relationship. There's a lookup relationship between task and position, between task and events. And your position is parent everywhere. Position is parent and task is child. Position is parent, event is child. So this object is also related. Now see, to every object, if you go with this task, if you go with the author, if you go with the author, while creation of the author also, let's verify this concept with the author object also. Author, see here, author is also related to task and event. Now, how come this is possible? Because see, although we have created this object, we have created hiring manager, we have created position, and we also have created all these objects. But then we haven't created this relationship. We haven't created this relationship. हमने ये relationship नहीं form की, right? Neither you nor me, any one of us. We haven't created this relationship. Then how come this is possible? That the objects, if I bring hiring manager, if I bring position, if I bring author, if I bring book, and every one of this object, every one of this object, with my custom object, let me also check it out with this my custom object. Let me bring my custom object over here. So if I bring my custom object also, see, my custom object is also related to this. So every object what we have created. Now this was all custom object. Now let me check this concept with some of the standard object also. First of all, let me remove this. So this was all custom object. Now let me check this concept with few of the standard objects. So if I bring account over here, if I bring account is also related to task and event. Okay. Let me bring contact and remove the account so that it make it less complicated. Yeah. See here. This object is also related. This object is also related. Contact is also related. Let me bring opportunity over here. If I first of all remove this contact. Now let me bring the opportunity over here. You see, the opportunity is also related, right? Opportunity is also related. This, see, the opportunity is also related. That means these two objects, task object and the event object. Now we have identified this. The task object and the event object, they are having a relationship with every object. What kind of relationship? Lookup relationship. Everywhere these are child. Task is child, event is child. And that particular object, it could be account, it could be contact, it could be any of the standard, any of the custom object, what you have seen. They are parent. This task and event are the child. Now, we have one created this relationship. How come this is possible that these task and event are related to each other? Right? Now let's discuss this part. See, this is a position object. So if you remember at the time of creation, and right now, let me bring this position object once again over here. So this, we have seen that position object is having a relationship between task and event. How come this relationship is possible? Because at the time of creation of this object, which object? Position object, and rest of the other objects also. I'm explaining this concept, in perspective of this position object, but the same procedure we have followed every week, right? So whatever we are discussing right now, this actually applies to every object. Clear? Okay. So at the time of creation of this object, we have clicked one of the checkbox. In the optional feature section, there was a checkbox which allow activities. So whenever you click this allow activities checkbox, there are two things that are going to be happen. There are two things that are going to be happen. What are those? First of all, when you click this, now this particular object position, you are allowing activities to be get performed on the position object. By clicking this allow activities, we are actually allowing activities to be get performed on the position object. Now, what sort of activities? Activities का मतलब होता है, you can create a task, you can create an event with respect to this object. And there is one more thing. I'm going to explain. What really happens when you click this allow activities? So basically three things are, whenever you click this allow activities, actually three things happens. First is, on that particular object, position object, on that particular object, whatever, it could be position, hiring manager, any object, on that particular object, you can create a task. You can create a task. First. Second, you can create an event. Second. Why? Because the object is going to be get related with both task and event whenever you click this. Okay. And third thing I'm going to tell. What's the third thing? Chalo, abhi kya hota hai ki as soon as I uncheck this allow activities, and let's see, let me save this first of all, and let's see what happens. Okay. Now, if I go and refresh this and see what happens, what do you see? The relationship has been removed. Now, the position object is no more related. The position object is no more related with the task anymore. So now on the position object, I cannot create a task. Rather, I cannot create an event, right? I cannot create a task. I cannot create the event on this position object. So this is what happens. So, I wanted this to be get associated. So once again, I'm going back and I'm, clicking this once again, allow activity, and let me now save this. So now we have allowed activities to be performed. So now, as once again, we could see that, the task object and the event object, now they are related. They are related to the position object. So this was the thing. First thing. So if you wanted, now this is the interview question. This is the interview question. So they will ask you this question in the interview. I don't want there's an object, for example, there's an object, could be standard, could be custom, that is not the thing. But there is an object, and on this object, I don't want to perform any of the task and event. What do you will do? What will your approach in that case? So there is an object, and we don't want this object that it should be, on this object, we should not allow any of the event and tasks to be get prepared. What will you do? So what you need to say is that actually task and events. Please write down the answer. Please write, because I tell the question, I am giving you the answer also. What you need to say. And see, this is itna deep tak koi bhi touch nahi karta hai. Let me tell you this. I could straightforward go and tell you with the help of workflows how to create a task. 2 मिनट का समय लगेगा ज्यादा से ज्यादा, ठीक है, और वो टॉपिक खत्म हो जाएगा. बट उसमें कोई मतलब नहीं. एंड आई डोंट बिलीव इन दिस मेकिंग क्रिएटिंग द शॉर्टकट्स इन द स्टडी. आई डोंट. तो ये जो मैं चीजें आपको बता रहा हूँ ना, दीज आर रियली रियली वेरी डीप कंसेप्ट एंड नोबडी टचेस दिस ऑफ, नेवर. तो देखिए, they will ask you this question in the interview. There is an object and we don't want that on this object task or event should be created. ये rather दो में से कोई भी. On the object we don't want event to be get created. How will you going to do that? This object should be separated from event. We don't want any of the task. We don't want any of the event to be get created on this object. How we are going to do this? So what you need to answer in that case? What you need to answer in that case? I'm giving you the answer that we need to go to that particular object. For example, the object is position. Let's go to the object position and expand the force.com quick access menu, go to the view object, see the properties, edit the properties. And then there is a checkbox in the optional features section. There is a checkbox, allow activities. What you need to do is this, just uncheck this. Just uncheck the allow activities, save it. Just uncheck the allow activities and save it. So this will actually disconnect the relationship. This will actually remove the relationship of that particular object with task and event. Now this object is actually not related to anybody, any of the task and event. And so you cannot perform any task, you cannot perform any event on this particular object. This is the answer. Okay, this is the answer. That means activity is a feature of Salesforce. Now let's come back to topic. Probably you have written the answer, so let's come back to topic. Activities is one of the feature of Salesforce. Activities is one of the feature of Salesforce. Like analytics is one of the feature. In the analytics, you are going to learn two things: reports, dashboards. Analytics is one of the feature of the Salesforce, where you are going to learn two topics: reports and a dashboard. Activities is also one of the features. Business automation is one of the features of the Salesforce. You are going to learn two things: workflow आप पढ़ रहे हो, process builders आप पढ़ रहे हो. समझ में आ रहा है? So as an topics अलग-अलग. Activities is also one of the feature of the Salesforce. And there are two things in the activities. Activity feature में दो चीजें होती हैं: task, दूसरा event. Task, event. ठीक है? So whenever I individually मैं task और event पे नहीं allow कर सकता. I allow the complete activity, either I can remove the complete activity. ऐसा individually task और event, ऐसा नहीं कि task दिया और event को remove कर लिया. This is not possible. Remember this. This is not possible. For example, if they will say कि मुझे task allow करना, event I don't want it to be allowed. No, it's not possible. Because there's only one checkbox: allow activities. You can either check, you can either uncheck. If you uncheck this allow activities, both of the things are, task as well as events, they are going to be, the relationship is going to be get removed. Now you cannot perform any activity. That means you cannot even perform task, not this event, not event and task. Both of the things are going to get removed. Now when you allow this, when you check this, both of the things are going to be come back. So individually you cannot, individually आप ऐसा नहीं कर सकते कि task दिया, event ले लिया, event दिया, task लिया. This cannot happen. Either you provide both of the things, either you remove both of the things by checking or unchecking this allow activities. Understood this concept? Yes or no? Yes or no? Please give the feedback so that I could move on. Yes, every one of you, come on. Understood the concept? You wanted me to explain it more. Yes. Fine. Okay. That's great. So let's move further. चलो, activities का आपको समझ में आ गया कि activity is one of the functionality of the Salesforce where there are two things: टास्क ऑब्जेक्ट, इवेंट ऑब्जेक्ट। अब एक और चीज इसमें बताना है मेरे को एक्टिविटीज पे आप, ठीक है। नाउ बिकॉज दिस इज समथिंग व्हिच इज चेक, लेट मी सेव दिस, ठीक है। हमने वी हैव अंडरस्टूड, वी हैव लर्न वन टॉपिक इन द कम्युनिकेशन टेम्पलेट, है ना, आपने ईमेल टेम्पलेट्स बनाना सीखा, एंड देन वी let's go with this new position creation notification template. So for the position object, you know, I created this template. Now जब मैनुअली जब हम इसको टेस्ट कर रहे थे, so that time we were using this button send test and verify merge fields. अब कैसे यहाँ पे जो आपने merge fields लगा रखी है, these are actually fields from the position object. Position object की hiring manager नाम की field, position object की reference ID नाम की field. Here you wanted position object का name, location, number. No, all these fields belongs to what? Position object. And you wanted dynamically to get this all from the database. So you are using this concept of merge fields. This is a JavaScript command. Let me tell you this. JavaScript है ये, ठीक है? So this is something called as JavaScript. भले आपको पता हो नहीं पता हो, but indirectly आपने एक command JavaScript की भी सीखी है। और ये बहुत दूर तक जाएगा, ये जो concept है ना, this what you are learning right it now, you know, this actually goes a little bit long. ये concept बहुत दूर तक यूज होता है। ये कंसेप्ट को भूलना नहीं, ये फॉर्मेट को भूलना नहीं, ओपनिंग ब्रैकेट, क्लोजिंग ब्रैकेट एंड एक्सक्लेमेशन मार्क, ये लाइटनिंग में भी जाएगा, ये और तक साथ में जाएगा आपके। LWC में थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट है, बट एटलीस्ट और तक जाएगा ये अभी आपको डेवलपमेंट में अपेक्स में पढ़ना है। एंड देन व्हेन यू गो फॉर द लाइटनिंग में भी आपको ये फॉर्मेट पढ़ने में आएगा। इन द ऑरा आल्सो वी राइट डाउन द सेम थिंग, ऑरा में भी लिखते हैं हम लोग, ठीक है। सो ये काफी दूर तक जाएगा आपको ये फॉर्मेट। चलो, सो अब यहाँ पे जैसे कि दिस फॉर्मेट, यू नो, इन दिस पर्टिकुलर ये जो मैंने टेम्पलेट बनाया, so I have used all these fields from the position object, right? And how we have tested this manually, we have one of the button, send test and verify merge fields. So let me click this, and then ये checkbox appear होता है आपके आगे में, and from here you need to select the object. कौन सा object? Position object, because there were all these fields belongs to position, so I need to select the position object. And then, you know, position object में फिर कौन सा record आप चाहते थे? तो for example senior admin record, and I wanted to send this email to this particular, so I was press OK button. So फिर ये हमको जो है email मिल जाता था, email deliver हो जाता था उस particular पे. So let me go with this 201 पे fire किया है, so 201 पे email. So here we are going to get this email, right? You know. So see, everything related to that has been fetched, has been the hiring manager name, and these all details. You know, these everything has been fetched from where? This all everything has been fetched from the database. So we were able to, you know, now let me close this. We were able to test this email template with the help of this send, test, and verify merge field. And here, related to record, you know, in this related to record, we could see the name of position. And the way, you know, I select the position and then I select the record, I test it, fine. This was all happening, you know. Now let me come back to once again, position object, view objects, and edit. So this was all happening because you have allowed activities. You allow activities to be performed on the position object. At the time of creation of the position object, you have allowed this allow activities. That is why, you know, that is why you are able to test an email template with respect to position object. Now let me do one more thing. चलो फिर से अब मैं इसको हटा देता हूँ. Let me save this. ठीक है? What I have done? मैंने allow activities को हटा दिया. Once again, let me refresh this first of all, so that, you know, it in the backend it will be loaded with the recent data. This is very thing, because see, you are dealing with the cloud technology. Every time whenever you do make any changes, you need to refresh the page. Always remember this. Okay. If you don't do that, you will going to get the old data, but you always require a fresh copy of the data to be get loaded. So because this is the reason every time you need to refresh it. Fine. So the same thing, you know, once again, you know, I need to check this. I wanted to test this email template. So once again, follow the same process, send, test, and verify merge fields. Go and select the position object from here. Party, problem, process, product. That's it. The list of P is over. And I cannot see the name of position. Why? Why I cannot see the name of position over here? Because position object is no more associated with activities. The checkbox allow activities has been deselected. Now we cannot perform any activity on the position object, and so we cannot perform activities. We cannot send or test any email with respect to position object. This is the reason. See, from this list, the name of position has been gone. Spanish, no more over here. Why? Because you haven't allowed, you don't want to perform any activities on the position object. Okay? This is what all happens whenever you click, whenever you don't click the unchecked, checked or unchecked activities. Make a list of this. There are only three things. There are only three things that happens. So in the activities, if you click this, what happens? The object is going to be get associated. Point number one. The object is going to be get associated with task object. Task is a standard object. Point number two, the object is going to be get associated with the event object. Point number three, we can perform certain activities like we can send and test email templates on that particular object. Okay. So this is what happens when you click this. And when you don't click this, uska vice versa apne se karna hai. Okay. Uska vice versa. It's a plain English sentence. Aapko idhar se karna hai. So this was all, this was all activity feature. ये था आपका activity feature. So let me now show you inside. Let's go to setup and build. Let's go to setup and then build and then expand the customize. Inside the customize, if you try to see the task and event, you will not find it. Rather, you will find it inside activities. See, there's a feature of Salesforce called as activities. There's a feature of Salesforce called as activities. Now, if you expand this activities, you are going to see things related to task and things related to event. Okay. So activities ke andar mein you will find all of the things that are related to task and all those fields, all of the things that are related to events. Okay, all of this. Like if you want a task in a activity is not object, activity is feature. Task and event are object. Fields object क्यों? इसीलिए, और मैं क्या कह रहा हूं आपसे कि टास्क और इवेंट ऑब्जेक्ट है. तो अगर आपको टास्क की फील्ड्स देखनी है तो आप ये ट्राई करेंगे. अगर आपको इवेंट की फील्ड देखनी है आप ये ट्राई करेंगे. अगर मैं आपसे बोलूं एक्टिविटीज की फील्ड बताइए तो आप मुझसे कहेंगे सर एक्टिविटी फीचर है, एक्टिविटी ऑब्जेक्ट नहीं है. एक्टिविटी के अंदर दो ऑब्जेक्ट है, टास्क ऑब्जेक्ट, इवेंट ऑब्जेक्ट. आप फील्ड देख सकते हैं टास्क ऑब्जेक्ट, आप फील्ड देख सकते हैं इवेंट्स ऑब्जेक्ट. इफ यू वांटेड टू सी, लेट्स सी दैट. लेट्स गो टू दिस टास्क फील्ड्स. आई क्लिक ऑन द टास्क. दीज आर द फील्ड्स ऑफ द टास्क. देखो ये है टास्क की सारी स्टैंडर्ड फील्ड्स, ये सारी फील्ड्स. If I wanted to see the fields of event, let's click on this event. So we are going to get the list of events field. In the event object के अंदर की fields हमको दिखाई दे देंगी यहाँ पे. But activities object नहीं है, activity feature है Salesforce का. ठीक है, understood? Try to understand this and make it very clear in your mind. Activity is a feature. Activity consists of two things inside that. जैसे analytics एक feature है जिसमें दो objects आती है, reports और dashboard. एक्टिविटी एक फीचर है जिसमें दो ऑब्जेक्ट्स आती हैं, टास्क ऑब्जेक्ट, इवेंट ऑब्जेक्ट. ठीक है. सो दीज टू ऑब्जेक्ट बिलोंग्स टू एक्टिविटी फीचर ऑफ सेल्सफोर्स. ठीक है, चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं. अब देखिए व्हाट इज अ टास्क, व्हाट इज एन इवेंट. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड दिस. Let's first understand this. Before this, I wanted to make, introduce one of the very important concept. Very important concept. What is WhoId WhatId? WhoId WhatId. Let's understand this because this is certainly a very important concept and this is one of the favorite question in the admin interview or rather in the interview. This is one of the favorite question. WhoId WhatId. Okay, WhoId WhatId. So let's first of all understand this very clearly and then we will move forward. Okay, I'll take example of any of the object like for example, let me take this task object. Let me take this task object. Now see, one thing I would like to show, and then we'll come back to this once again. अभी आप event की fields, मैंने event object की fields आपको मैं दिखा रहा हूँ. And then in the fields of event object, if you see, this is a field who stands for who ID, what stands for what ID. So in the event object, in the fields of event object, in the event object, there are two fields: who, what, rather who ID, what ID. Okay, so these two fields are present inside where event. Okay, fine. Let's now move towards the task object. Now we are listed all of the fields of the task object. Okay, now these are the fields of the task. Here also you could see who and what. That means so. Now I ask you this question: what is who ID, what ID? Write down the first sentence. How will you start giving the answer? The first thing, how will you start giving the answer? The first thing. Who ID and what ID? Who ID and what ID are two standard fields. Who ID and what ID are two standard fields. These are standard fields. What are these? These are standard fields. Who ID and what ID are the two standard fields of task object as well as event object. Because you have seen this, task may be ye fields nazar aa rahi hai aapko. And if you go to the events, also in the event, you could see that who and what, right? So your first sentence in the answer will be that who ID and the what ID, the who ID and the what ID are the two standard fields. Somewhat sentence is different, but meaning is same. Both the task and the event object have two standard fields called who ID and what ID. Okay. Now what they are used to store, that's a different thing. Abhi to main le raha hu. But how will you start giving the answer? The who ID and the what ID, these are the two standard fields. The who ID and the what ID, these are the two standard fields. These are what? These are the two standard fields of task and event object. Of the task and the event object. Both the task and the event object, they have two standard fields. This field who ID and what ID is present in both task object, event object. Okay. Now let's come back to this diagram. Okay. Now this diagram, I created this in terms of task and event. This is what? This is your, you could take it as a task object. You could take it as an event object. That's not the issue. For now, what the important thing is required you to understand is related to the who ID. Fine. Okay, so every object have a field called as ID. let's take this as an task object. So ID and then name of the task and then name of the task. Now I'm creating few more fields like who ID and what ID. So although there are so many fields inside these two objects, you have seen, I cannot draw every field of this. So I created this. This is what? This is my task object or event, whatever you wanted to say this. कोई एक से example लेता हूँ. For example, let's take it as a task object. Let's take it as a task object. So ID, name, who ID, what ID, who ID, what ID. Okay. So who ID and what ID, these are the two fields. Rather match who ID, what ID. Okay. These are the two fields. These are the two standard fields. These are the two standard fields inside task and event. चलो. If you have understood this, यहाँ तक अगर आपको diagram clear हुआ है तो मैं आगे बढ़ता हूँ. Tell me yes or no. Tell me yes or no. सिर्फ यहाँ तक आपको clear हुआ है क्या? अगर यहाँ तक clear हुआ है तो I'll go forward. Otherwise मैं और explain करता हूँ. Come on guys, please respond me on the chat. ठीक है. Now what is they are actually used to store. चलो तो अभी एक बार ये थ्योरी पढ़ लेते हैं हम लोग, उसके बाद में फिर हम आगे. So WhoId and WhatId are used to store the reference ID of their related parent. Now what does it mean? Reference ID of their related parent. Anyways, वो तो हम समझ लेंगे. WhoId. This field contains the parent ID if the task or event is associated with lead, contact or user. Fine. WhatId will store any other object. चलो भाई अब वापस चलते हैं अपन. Now ये तो मैं आपको पहले ही डेमोन्स्ट्रेट कर चुका हूँ on the canvas. आपको मैं पहले ही डेमोन्स्ट्रेट कर चुका हूँ कि this WhoId and WhatId they are related to everybody. Sorry, this task object and event object they are related to everybody, right? This I have already demonstrated. ये तो आप देख चुके हैं. आपने देखा है कि टास्क ऑब्जेक्ट और आपका इवेंट ऑब्जेक्ट दे आर रिलेटेड टू एवरीबॉडी. जहां जहां पर अलाउ एक्टिविटीज ये चेकबॉक्स क्लिक किया गया, नाउ दे आर रिलेटेड टू एवरीबॉडी. एंड इन एवरी केस टास्क चाइल्ड है, इवेंट चाइल्ड है. पेरेंट कौन है? पेरेंट है वो ऑब्जेक्ट जिसकी आप बात कर रहे हो. अगर मैं पोजीशन की बात कर रहा हूं तो पोजीशन पेरेंट है. अगर मैं अकाउंट की बात कर रहा हूं तो अकाउंट इज पेरेंट. इफ आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट अपॉर्चुनिटी देन अपॉर्चुनिटी इज पेरेंट. एवरीवेयर दिस ऑब्जेक्ट इज पेरेंट and task child. Event is also a child object. Clear है? Event is also a child object. चलो अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. स्टेप बाय स्टेप जाओगे ना तो ऐसा समझ जाएगा. बिल्कुल कंसेप्ट लोग पता नहीं क्यों नहीं समझ पाते हैं. WhoId WhatId या तो समझा नहीं पाते हैं तो उस वजह से भी प्रोबेबली लोग समझ नहीं पाते. हालांकि इसको समझना बहुत 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 आसान है. ठीक है, चलो यहाँ तक अगर आपको क्लियर हुआ, लेट मी टेक यू टू वन मोर थिंग. एट द टाइम ऑफ रिलेशनशिप, अगर आपको याद हो कि हम जब रिलेशनशिप पढ़ रहे थे तो I told you how to create a relationship. Can anyone tell me what are the steps of creating relationship? You can unmute yourself. You have the command. But, till the time I find out the diagram, can anyone tell me how to create the relationship? How we have created the relationship? Yeah, anyone of you, if you know. Anyone of you? Yes, how to create the relationship between two objects? How we can create the relationships? Come on, guys! It was not that much of difficult thing. Let me try to find out the diagram. Till the time you could answer me. No one? भूल गए? There were only 2 steps. It was a 2-step job. That's it. Among the 2 objects, you need to identify which one is the parent and which one is the child. This was step number 1. For example, there are 2 objects, book and author. I identified author to be the parent and book to be the child. This was my step number 1. Yeah. Now step number 2. What was the step number 2? Come on. Yes. What was the step number 2? Kiran, Ragute, Josna. What was the step number 2? Once you know who is the parent, once you know who is the child, what is the step number 2? Selecting a relationship is a separate thing. You go for lookup and master detail everywhere. This step is common. Yes. Okay. What was the step I told you to create a relationship? Yes, Kiran, Josna, anybody? Okay. You don't know the answer. Yeah. Any one of you? Yes, guys. Rajwal is saying go to the child object. Akshay is also saying go to the child object. Now, what to do with the child? I know. Okay, fine. It's clear. Thank you. But what to do with the child? Once you know who is the parent, yeah, with this soil, yeah, come on.
Go to the child object and create a custom field.
Of the type, custom field of the type. Custom field, there could be, see, there are 19 different types of data type are there. You need to go to the child and create a relationship field over there. Custom field of the type relationship. You could answer in this way. I will not allow this behavior. Guys, you are not supposed to forget the things. You know, एक 10 दिन पहले की बात है, ज़्यादा दिन नहीं हुआ इसको. Only 2 reasons could be there. या आपको पढ़ाई बिल्कुल नहीं हो रही है, guys, बिल्कुल नहीं. और तकलीफ जाएगी आपको, मैं बता रहा हूँ. Once the admin is over, you could probably start giving the interviews. आप admin के बाद ही job ले सकते हो. आप Salesforce का ब्यूटी है ये. This is what the no other technology could do this. आपको एडमिन के बाद जॉब लग सकता है. एडमिन ट्रेनिंग जो मैं प्रोबेबली इस मंथ खत्म करने की सोच रहा हूँ. और दिसंबर में डेवलपमेंट स्टार्ट करने का थोड़ा 19-20 होगा आगे 1-2 हफ्ते का। अगर आप इस तरह से जाओगे ना तो मुश्किल है आपको, आपको पूरा पुलिंदा लेके बैठना पड़ेगा, पूरा रिविजन करना पड़ेगा। ऐसा सही नहीं है ये अप्रोच। आपको कोई एग्जाम नहीं देना है, ये कोई कॉलेज नहीं है, और ये कोई कॉलेज की क्लासेस भी नहीं चल रही हैं आपकी कि जहां आप सेमेस्टर के एंडिंग में एग्जाम आएगा तब तक क्या करना, अभी तो खेल लेते हैं तब पढ़ लेंगे, एग्जाम को बहुत समय नहीं। आप एक प्रोफेशनल कोर्स में हो, ठीक है, आप अपने टाइम को इस तरह से वेस्ट नहीं कर सकते। आपको 3 महीने के अंदर जॉब चाहिए, 3 महीने के अंदर आईटी में आना है, आपको मैं 1 महीने बाद की अपॉर्चुनिटी दे सकता हूँ, बशर्ते आप तैयार हो। तो ये सही तरीका नहीं है, इसलिए ये नहीं चलेगा। आंसर चाहिए मेरे को। ज्योत्सना, किरण, तुम दोनों के नाम लिए थे मैंने, दैट मीन्स यू वर सपोज टू गिव मी द आंसर। और 2 ही स्टेप है, कोई ज्यादा बड़ी बात नहीं पूछा हूँ। आई कुड आस्क एनीबॉडी, आई वांटेड द आंसर, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू अलाउ दिस। ठीक है, देयर आर ओनली 2 स्टेप्स, कम ऑन, देयर आर ओनली 2 स्टेप। अगर आपको रिलेशनशिप क्रिएट करनी है, कुड बी लुकअप मास्टर डिटेल, दैट्स अ डिफरेंट स्टोरी कि उसमें क्या आइडेंटिफाई करना, वो एक अलग बात है। लेकिन लेट मी रिवाइज दिस कंसेप्ट। अगर आप बता देते तो मैं दूसरे कंसेप्ट को बताता, लेकिन चलो, क्योंकि आप लोगों में से काफी लोग नहीं बता पाए, इसलिए मैं रिवाइज करूँ और इसमें समय खराब। सो देयर आर 2 ऑब्जेक्ट्स वी वांटेड टू क्रिएट अ रिलेशनशिप। स्टेप नंबर 1, आइडेंटिफाई करें, पहचानने की कौन पेरेंट है कौन चाइल्ड है। Once you know this, go to the child object, create a field, create a new field. What type of field? Relationship field. What this relationship field is going to store? First of all, relationship is always present in the child. Relationship is always present in the child. Relationship field is always present in the child. तो अगर relationship field हमेशा child object में रहती है, अगर रिलेशनशिप हमेशा, आप मुझे रिलेट करने दो, अगर रिलेशनशिप हमेशा चाइल्ड ऑब्जेक्ट में रहती है, टास्क ऑब्जेक्ट हर बार क्या है? चाइल्ड। हर बार क्या है? चाइल्ड। इवेंट ऑब्जेक्ट हर बार क्या है? चाइल्ड। इसका मतलब ये जिस किसी के साथ भी रिलेटेड है, चाहे वो पोजीशन ऑब्जेक्ट हो, चाहे वो ऑथर ऑब्जेक्ट, चाहे वो हायरिंग मैनेजर ऑब्जेक्ट हो, चाहे वो अकाउंट ऑब्जेक्ट हो, चाहे वो अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑब्जेक्ट हो, चाहे कोई भी दूसरा ऑब्जेक्ट, वो ऑब्जेक्ट पेरेंट रहेगा, टास्क ऑब्जेक्ट, इवेंट ऑब्जेक्ट चाइल्ड रहेगा। अगर ये ऑब्जेक्ट चाइल्ड है, टास्क चाइल्ड है, इवेंट चाइल्ड है, तो इसमें वो रिलेशनशिप फील्ड जरूर हो। टास्क में एक रिलेशनशिप फील्ड जरूर हो, इवेंट में एक रिलेशनशिप फील्ड जरूर हो। ठीक है, बिकॉज whenever we create a relationship field, whenever we create a relationship fields are always created in the child object. तो अगर मैं कह रहा हूं आपका टास्क चाइल्ड है, टास्क मस्ट हैव रिलेशनशिप फील्ड। अगर मैं कह रहा हूं इवेंट चाइल्ड है, इवेंट मस्ट हैव रिलेशनशिप फील्ड। एंड यस ऑफ कोर्स दे हैव, यस ऑफ कोर्स दे हैव। कौन सी फील्ड है भाई? WhoId, बोथ टास्क एंड इवेंट दोनों में है। WhoId WhatId, these are your relationship fields. ये आपकी रिलेशनशिप फील्ड्स हैं। WhoId रिलेशनशिप फील्ड है, WhatId ये भी रिलेशनशिप फील्ड है। ये दोनों रिलेशनशिप फील्ड्स हैं, किसमें क्या रहता है वो बात की बात है। WhoId क्या है? रिलेशनशिप फील्ड है। WhatId क्या है? रिलेशनशिप फील्ड है। तो अब जो हमने सेंटेंस बोला था ना, उसको कंप्लीट कर, ठीक है। और एक बात मैं आपसे पूछूं, क्या बुरा नहीं मानना, ये इतना डिटेल से जब मैं आपको सेंटेंस बाय सेंटेंस बताता हूँ और आपसे यही अपेक्षा करता हूँ कि आप वो सेंटेंस ही याद करो, आपको प्रॉब्लम क्या है यार? आपको मैं हर चीज, आप देखो मैंने वर्क फ्लो पे किस तरह से आपको पढ़ाया, रिलेशनशिप कैसे पढ़ाया, पीछे के वीडियो जाइए। और मैं यही, इवन आई एम गिविंग यू द एग्जैक्ट आंसर, सेंटेंस बाय सेंटेंस देता हूं मैं आपको। इतना डिटेल से मुझे नहीं लगता कोई इतनी प्रोफेशनल ट्रेनिंग में कोई इतना डिटेल से जाता हो, क्योंकि देखो हम लोग ने किया है, हमने सेल्सफोर्स किया है, लाइटनिंग किया है, जावा स्क्रिप्ट किया है, ठीक है, उसके बाद LWC किया है, हमने पढ़ा है, हमने खुद पढ़ा है। एंड आई नो हाउ यू पीपल यूज टू टीच दिस। मेरे पास लोग आते हैं ट्रेनिंग पे, कहते हैं कि हमने किसी फलानी जगह से ट्रेन किया सर, बट वे डब्बा गुल है पूरे कंसेप्ट का। व्हेन आई स्टार्ट टेकिंग द मॉक, दे डोंट नथिंग। मैं सजेस्ट करता हूँ भाई साहब ट्रेनिंग पे आ जाओ, बिकॉज आई एम वेरी सॉरी टू से, बट यू डोंट नो एनीथिंग। आपको कुछ भी नहीं पता। पीपल आर टेकिंग दिस मनी, और वो क्या कर रहे हैं मुझे नहीं पता लोगों के साथ, बट एटलीस्ट आप तो कम से कम लकी हो ना यार, आपको मैं एग्जैक्ट सेंटेंस दे रहा हूँ, व्हाई यू आर नॉट बीइंग एबल टू जस्ट आंसर दैट सेंटेंस। तो ये बिल्कुल नहीं चलेगा बॉस, याद रखो, ये बिल्कुल नहीं चलेगा। आई एम कीपिंग वॉच एवरीबॉडी, आप मेरे हर एक पे नजर है। और ये मॉक जब मैं स्टार्ट करूंगा, अभी थोड़ा सा मैं बिजी हूँ, मैं जैसे ही मॉक स्टार्ट करूंगा मुझे पूरा पता चल जाएगा आपका स्टेटस। सो टास्क ऑब्जेक्ट, इवेंट ऑब्जेक्ट, चाइल्ड है। हर चाइल्ड ऑब्जेक्ट में रिलेशनशिप फील्ड होती है, इनमें भी मौजूद है। कौन सी फील्ड है? WhoId WhatId। WhoId WhatId दोनों ही रिलेशनशिप फील्ड है, दोनों ही रिलेशनशिप फील्ड है। ठीक है, चलिए वापस चलते हैं फिर से स्ट्राइक। रिलेशनशिप फील्ड में क्या स्टोर होता है? जैसे 001 ये क्या है, 002 ये क्या है, 003 004 05 ये क्या चीजें हैं, ये क्या चीजें? दीज आर रिकॉर्ड आईडीज, दीज आर रिकॉर्ड आईडीज, दीज आर रिकॉर्ड आईडीज। रिकॉर्ड आईडीज ऑफ होम? क्या ये रिकॉर्ड का आईडी है? नो। क्या ये रिकॉर्ड का आईडी? नहीं। 001 001 is a record ID. Record ID of parent. There is a record, Bangalore, with the name. This is a record. This is the ID. And this is the parent record. ये parent है. Author is parent. So this record is parent record. This is a parent record. A parent record. Parent record. 101 parent record ID. 102 parent record ID. 103 parent record ID. 104 parent record ID. These all are IDs of the parent object. These all are ID of parent object record. Every one of is a parent record ID. Clear? Clear? Yes or no? Clear? Come on, yes or no? Come on, yaar. Don't waste my time. Come on, yes or no? Clear with this concept? मैं relationship ही पढ़ा रहा हूँ, कुछ नहीं पढ़ा रहा हूँ मैं. I'm taking back to the those days of relationship once again. Yeah. Okay. So relationship field. Final conclusion बोल रहा हूँ. Relationship field always store. Write down this sentence. I don't know whether you remember this or not. Write it down. Relationship field always store parent record ID. 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 तो अगर WhoId WhatId, these are relationship field. These are relationship field. What they are going to store? What they are going to store? What they are going to store? Parent record ID. What they are going to store? Parent record ID. What will you store inside WhoId? Parent record ID. What will you store inside WhatId? Parent record ID. ठीक है? WhoId WhatId are used to store reference ID, या फिर reference ID बोलो, या फिर आप बोलो parent record ID of their related parent, of their related. They will store parent record ID. WhoId will store parent record ID. WhatId will store parent record ID. तो क्या मैं डुप्लीकेट करके रखूंगा दोनों जगहों पे? नहीं, नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. अब चलो WhoId WhatId कंसेप्ट देखो यार. I'm constructing two types of object. For example, there's a lead object. There's a lead object, you know. Let me go with this color. So color selection का समय नहीं है मेरे पास. ID, name, and some more things, you know, first name, last name, whatever. Lead में दो नाम होते हैं, first name, last name, इस तरह से. And few more fields probably. ठीक है. Let me go with this. Lead object है. मान के चलिए, this object is a lead object. या फिर ये contact object है या फिर user. This object, first of all, let me write it down. Let's take with this as an assumption कि this object is a lead object है. या फिर this object is a contact object. Okay. This object is a lead object. Or this object is a contact object, or this object is a user object. ये जो मैं ब्लॉक बना रहा हूँ, लेट्स टेक दिस एज एन अजम्पशन कि ये जो ब्लॉक है दिस रिप्रेजेंट थ्री थिंग्स. या तो ये लीड ऑब्जेक्ट है, या फिर आप इसे कॉन्टैक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट समझें, या फिर आप इसे यूजर ऑब्जेक्ट समझें. ठीक है, इनमें से कोई भी. देयर इज एन आईडी, प्रोबेबली फर्स्ट नेम, लास्ट नेम, एंड फ्यू मोर थिंग्स. कुछ और चीजें जो ऑब्जेक्ट में रहती हैं. ठीक है, कोई और चीज, व्हाटएवर. ठीक है, some other field. It could be like ईमेल. ठीक है, ईमेल. एंड देयर इज अ रिकॉर्ड. चलो एक रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट करता हूँ यहाँ पे. आप एक रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट करता हूँ. लेट मी क्रिएट फ्यू ऑफ द रिकॉर्ड सो दैट यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड दिस. देयर इज अ रिकॉर्ड, आईडी है इसकी, फॉर एग्जांपल 1211 EYF FGE H. whatever, 1212, this first name, this last name, and this email ID. Fine. One more record, 1213, like this, and like that. So this is an object. This is an object, lead object. आप इसको lead बोलिए तो भी चलेगा, contact बोलिए तो भी चलेगा, user बोलिए तो भी चलेगा. Okay, fine. There's one more object. There's one more object. There's one more object. Okay. Now, for example, this is an some other object. Some other object. It could be like, you know, a position object. POSI, position. Position object, rather. It could be any other object. Any other object. Okay. It could be any other object. This is any other object. Now, for example, this object also have some fields. The ID is the common field. ID is the common field of everybody. Fine. There's a field called as ID. Then position have a name. And then, you know, position have a name and few more fields of the position, probably location and something like that. Milestone date, whatever. So this is one of the object. Okay. So now see, let me create the records over here. Let's give the names. So it could be like, you know, ID is there, and then could be like name, and could be, you know, location, and could be some more that, you know, milestone date. Let me now create few records inside this so that you will understand the concept. So ID is like 301, and name of the position is Java developer. Location is Hyderabad. Milestone date is something. 302, Salesforce developer. Location is Bangalore. And like 303, location is Apex developer for Nagpur. Okay. Okay. So I created two different objects, lead and position. Now you know one thing, you know, you all know one thing, that both of them, you know, both of these objects, lead is also associated with task and event. Your position is also associated with task and event. And in both cases, you know, in both cases, lead is parent, task is child. Position is parent, task is child. Okay. These two are related to each other. ये relationship में है. अब जब ये relationship में है, you know, if these are related to each other, तो और ये child है, this is your child, you know this, कि task object या फिर event object, these are always child. And what are these? These objects are my parent objects, you know, these objects are my parent object. Your lead is parent, your position is also a parent object. Okay. Your position is also a parent object. Okay. चलो ये दोनों parent है हमारे. Task object क्या है? Child. Event object क्या है? Child. चलो. Now, lead अगर parent है, contact अगर parent है, user अगर parent, और ये एक records है, ये उनके records है. For example, lead का ही ले लो. कोई एक object पकड़ो तो confusion थोड़ा सा कम होगा आपको. कोई भी एक object पकड़ो, lead object. Lead have all these records. Now this is something which is related. ये आपका task object जो है वो lead के साथ related है. तो अगर ये related है तो इसकी relationship field पर, जैसे कि मैंने अभी यहाँ दिखाया, relationship field पे, जैसे book ID ये relationship field था, relationship field पे parent के record IDs होंगे, कोई भी record parent के record IDs, ठीक है. relationship field पे, relationship field दो है, WhoId WhatId, उसमें क्या मिलेगा? parent का record ID, parent का record. parent कौन है? lead object parent. record ID क्या है? 1211, 1212, 1213. अब दो फील्ड से यहाँ पे WhoId भी WhatId भी, तो ये कहाँ जाएगा? अब ध्यान से सुनो, मैं फाइनल कंक्लूजन बता रहा हूँ, बहुत ध्यान से सुनो, बहुत ध्यान से सुनो. If the task or event is associated with lead, contact या user, अगर ये associated है lead, contact और user से, जो कि associated हैं, तो उनके parent का ID, मतलब इनके record ID will go to WhoId. तो ये जो आपकी ये जो तीन यहाँ जो है ना, ये this will go to WhoId. WhoId। इसके अलावा कोई भी ऑब्जेक्ट जैसे पोजीशन ऑब्जेक्ट या कोई भी दूसरा ऑब्जेक्ट जो कि एसोसिएटेड है आपके टास्क और इवेंट के साथ, तो उसका आईडी विल गो टू WhoId। ठीक है, दिस इज द कंसेप्ट ऑफ WhoId एंड WhatId। फिर से एक बार रिवाइज करते हैं, फाइनल कंक्लूजन पे आते हैं। आई कैन नॉट टेक दिस वर्कफ्लो बाय टुडे बिकॉज यू सी देयर वर सो मेनी थिंग्स that are before you actually understand how to create a task, there were so many things। मुझे सिर्फ वही नहीं पढ़ाना है, आपको बहुत सारी चीजें पढ़ानी थी। Let's come to the final conclusion। What is WhoId and WhatId? How will you start the answer? You will start by saying this sentence: WhoId WhatId। WhoId WhatId are the two reference field, or rather are the two relationship field। WhoId and WhatId, these are two standard relationship fields। Then relationship field, दोनों को मिला के standard relationship field बोलेंगे, ज़्यादा अच्छा रहेगा। WhoId and WhatId, these are the two standard relationship fields inside task and event object। WhoId WhatId are the two standard relationship field in the task and event object, and both of them are used to store the record IDs of their parents। The record IDs of their parents. But WhoId will only store the record IDs. WhoId will only store the record ID for lead, contact, and user object। WhoId will only store the record IDs of lead object, contact object, and user object। Apart from these three objects, any other object, any other standard or custom object, if the object is related to task and event, their record IDs will be stored inside WhatId। Their record ID will be stored inside WhatId। ठीक है, फिर से बोलता हूं, WhoId WhatId are the two standard relationship fields which are always used to store the record IDs of their parent। WhoId WhatId are the two standard relationship fields which are used to store the record IDs of their parent, but the WhoId will always store the WhoId will always store the records of the record IDs of lead, contact, and user object। The WhoId will always store the record IDs of lead object, user object, contact object। Apart from these three, lead, user, and contact, any other object's record ID, if it is related to task and event, their record IDs will always stored inside the WhatId। So this is the whole concept of WhoId and WhatId। And this is most favorite question. This is the most repeated question, I could say, the admin interview। This is, I don't know, people find it very difficult to understand. Rather, this is a very small concept. You just need to go through this. Okay. One final thing I would like to show, because if you probably have understood this, अभी मैं पूछने का मेरे पास समय नहीं है कि आपको समझा या नहीं समझा। You have to understand this. If no, go with the video, revise it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, whatever. I don't mind this. Just let me show you something, as a final conclusion. Let's go to the setup object. Okay, we have this over. Fine. Okay, send, test, and verify once again. Send, test, and verify. Let's go to here. Let me try to find out every object is, everything is like every object name is over here. Let me try to find out the lead's name। यहाँ पे lead का नाम है क्या? Lead है क्या यहाँ पे? नहीं है। इसका मतलब क्या lead related नहीं है? नहीं, lead related है। Lead is related to task and event. Why the name is of lead over not here? अरे contact है क्या यहाँ पे? Contact है क्या? Contract है? Contact है क्या यहाँ पे? नहीं है. क्यों? क्या contact related नहीं है? क्या contact पे activities नहीं है? है, of course है. Why the name of contact and lead is not here? User का नाम मिलेगा आपको. Don't worry, user है यहाँ पे. Because user पे दो तरह की IDs होती हैं. वो छोड़ो. Lead और contact नजर आ रहा है क्या आपको? नहीं नजर आ रहा. क्यों नजर नहीं आ रहा? क्यों नजर नहीं आ रहा? उसकी वजह है, बताता हूँ मैं. I'll take you to you. I'll take 5 more minutes. Divya is here? Okay, Divya is not here. Anyways. I'll take 5 more minutes. Let me see something. I'm damn sure that nobody has attempted this. Nobody of you has attempted this. I'm very much sure. Because if someone of you has even tried for this, you know, I have given you as an assignment to configure an email template to notify the contact. If any one of you has tried, you will ping me in the WhatsApp, sir. We won't find the name of this contact in this. Because मैंने आपको यही दिखाया था. मुझे पक्का पता है आप में से किसी ने भी attempt नहीं करा. And this is the way I find out who is answering your who is doing the assignment or who is not doing. अब आप अपने गिरेबान में झांक के देखो कि आपने attempt किया है क्या. Because if you even have attempted, you will ask me, okay, sir, we don't find the name of contact in this particular list. How come this is possible? We don't find the name of contact. We don't find the name of lead. Why? Why? I'll tell you why. Now is the answer. This is the lead. This is the list. What you are seeing. These are what IDs. And this is the lead of WhoId. ये है लिस्ट आपकी WhoId. नीचे जो देखा वो what था. अब हुआ पे who पे क्या रहता है? Contact, lead and users. यहाँ पर मिलेगा. तो अगर आप में से किसी ने अटेम्प्ट करना था तो ये होता था. Contact यहाँ से मिलेगा. Lead यहाँ से मिलेगा. User यहाँ से. This is the list of WhoId. This is the list of WhatId. That's why this example I have given. किसी ने पूछा नहीं because किसी ने किया ही नहीं. Probably. ठीक है? चलो. So this is the concept of WhoId and WhatId, guys. And so you know, आज तो इतना ही कर पाए. अभी कल फिर we'll try to end this workflows by tomorrow by taking this assigning a new task. It's fine. Let me stop the recording first.